Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's Velero community meeting. My name is Jonas Roslin. I'm here with the community, the Velero team and community members. Super happy to have you all here. Let me share my screen with the agenda, and if you have anything that you would like to add to the agenda, I'm going to share that in the chat here. So here's the agenda doc. There you go, and let me share my screen. All right. So a bunch of stuff happening, and of course, we're all ramping up for KubeCons. We're going to cover a bunch of KubeCon stuff today. But before we dive into KubeCon, let's talk about stuff that happened last week. Steve.
Yeah, I'll kick it off. So for those of you who haven't seen any of the announcements, we shipped 1.2. So we're pretty excited about that. Got that out on Thursday. So threw the link in there at the top of the agenda so you can get the latest docs and all the release notes and the upgrade instructions. So please check it out and send any feedback you have our way. So that definitely took up a good part of the second half of last week. We've also been just doing some housekeeping on issues that we have in the backlog. So closing out a few things that were inactive, putting in a few PRs for some smaller issues that I found that I could just tackle quickly. And now that we've extracted the cloud provider plugins into their own repos, I've also started migrating some of the issues that are specific to those into their respective repositories. So if you're involved with any of those, you may notice that they're switching repositories, but basically just a bunch of housekeeping. And then definitely starting to think about 1.3 and beyond. We're hoping that we can think about the next few releases and kind of think about how to line up some of the bigger features and bigger work that we've been talking about. I will say that, since we're approaching the end of the year, we've got KubeCon next week and then a couple of holidays. I think that, the rest of calendar year 2019 will be a little bit slower than usual. And so overall our 1.3 cycle will probably be a little bit longer than usual. We may not really get working on it in earnest until the new year, but we'll certainly keep everyone up to date on kind of how we're proceeding there. I think that's about it for me.
All right, awesome. Any questions regarding 1.2 and the planning for 1.3? All right, moving on to Nolan.
Okay, despite what Jonas said, my last week was KubeCon basically. So I mostly doing KubeCon talk prep. Adnan and I are talking about the CSI volume snapshotter API. That will be on Wednesday at 5:20.
In case anyone wants to finish their Wednesday with a blast.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it'll be real fun. So we'll be talking about kind of a little bit of the background about where CSI and specifically the volume snapshot API came from, why it's there, and then diving into some of the details of that API as it relates to Kubernetes. We'll be talking a little bit about Velero, but not necessarily specifically about Velero. In terms of Velero specific things, I've been slow to respond to Helm chart PRs. I know there have been a lot of questions on that, been in and out with some health issues the last couple weeks. So plan to respond to some of the Helm chart PRs today and tomorrow. I'm not going to make any promises about them getting merged. And then I'm on community support next week for KubeCon. I think basically the whole team is going to be there. So community support response may be slow, but I'm going to try my best to respond. And I will also be out the following week.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely be there at your talk. I think I had time for that. So I'll be there taking some pictures. I think it's going to be super fun.
Oh, and actually, I just realized I don't think I have the link open to it, but I'll throw it in the notes. Dylan from Red Hat is doing a Velero talk. I think it's related to their Fusor effort that wraps Velero. I think it's like the OpenShift 3 to 4 migration stuff, but there is a another Velero talk that's happening. I think that is on Wednesday, the day before. It's either earlier on Wednesday or the day before. I can't remember exactly when.
It's the day before. It's Tuesday at 4:25.
Yeah, there it is.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, we'll add that to the notes here. That's great. Any questions for Nolan?
I have a question, but maybe that's something that we can wait until after everybody gets their updates. So
Sounds good. So, Carlicia.
Hi, everybody. I was on PTO yesterday. It was a US sort of holiday. And so I have a three-day brain today. I just realized that I'm doing community support, which I wasn't doing, but I'm going to be doing now. I had, so there's a secret project, and I dedicated a couple of days to it last week. And there's also a blog post that was written, should be coming out at some point soon. I do need to update the Helm PR. There were some questions that we weren't clear. And I'm not going to be at the community lunch, the Velero community lunch next Wednesday, because I had committed to lead one of the tables at the diversity lunch and hack session. Bummer. And that's it for me.
Thanks, Carlicia. Yeah, I know it's a bummer that you can't be at the community lunch. We'll talk about the community lunch in a bit, but you will be at the VMware booth though. So if anyone wants to talk to you, you'll be at the VMware booth at a few different times throughout the week.
Yes, I think it's only one time.
One time is good too. All right. Any questions for Carlicia?
Yeah, I'll be at the booth on Tuesday from 2 to 4.
Do you have a date for the secret project?
It might be before KubeCon. There are a couple of things up in the air.
Okay.
But if it's not before KubeCon, it's going to be short after.
Awesome. All right, Adnan.
Cool. Yeah, it's mostly just been KubeCon talk and demo prep. Oh, I guess not demo prep. That was mostly known. But yeah, kind of finishing up the slides yesterday so we could get that uploaded. And I also need to kind of spend a bit more time on the SIGAPS intro slides later this week as well. So, so yeah, kind of pretty much heads down this week on just that. I do want to kind of take a look back at the Velero issues and see if there's anything that I've been mentioned on or commented on, just to get plugged in there. But yeah, other than that.
Cool, thank you. So one thing that I've been working on together with a community member is to update the sites to Jekyll 4. It's something that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and I hit a few issues. And I will willingly admit that I'm not a Jekyll genius. And Brett, he actually found a bunch of really nice workarounds and the actual way to do this. So we're going to move towards Jekyll 4 for all the websites. So Velero.io will be on Jekyll 4 most likely mid-December or something like that. Not before KubeCon, because that's nuts. But yeah, mid-December something, we'll have all the sites moved over to Jekyll 4, which should make build times a lot faster and things like that. Another thing, that we've been working on is, of course, the community lunch at KubeCon. So if you will be at KubeCon in San Diego next week, please join us for the community lunch at 12:30. Come by the VMware booth or look for the Velero sign in the lunch area at the convention center. Where we're going to have signs on a few different tables. We'll have maintainers on those, I think it's 3 tables. So we'll have Velero maintainers on 3 tables. So just join us and talk about how you use Velero and how you would like to improve it. We'll also fill out the where to find the Velero team at KubeCon, so you can see that there.
Are we gonna have like a nice banner, like Game of Thrones, House of Velero type style banner? Or
It's a big banner. It's a big banner. Yeah, it's not
Nice.
crazy big. The company that are making the banners, they suggested a 9-foot banner. I was like, I can't do that. That would be ridiculous. So no, it'll be a big banner. So hopefully we'll see it. People will see it, and yeah, it's going to be super, super fun. So yeah, please join us at 12:30 on Wednesday for Velero Community Lunch.
Game of backups.
Game of backups, I love it. All right, we then have a discussion topic around Helm support.
Yeah, so I wrote that one up. That was mostly, I have been seeing some emails flying around asking about maybe a little bit more integrated support into the Helm chart for the plugins. So 1.2 introduced support for the -- plugins argument in Velero install, and it's possible to add in the Helm chart now with the init containers. I think either we need better instructions or we need to make this a little bit more streamlined. But people were asking about it, and if we want to make more integrated support, then it might be a little delayed, simply because KubeCon at the moment. But I just wanted to communicate that I need to follow up on the channels that people have been asking on. But yeah, it's on our radar, but I don't know that it's going to be this week or the next 2 at this point.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's doable today. It's just a bit awkward.
Yeah, and Carlisia's PR mentions it, like we have setting the init containers, and it's not the semantics aren't exactly the same, right? Like, so in the Helm chart, it's init containers versus in Velero install, it's plugins. So effectively the YAML comes out the same, but the user-facing labels aren't exactly the same. Not labels in the Kubernetes API sense, but the things you type aren't exactly the same. So whether that's documentation or what, that could be a little bit more clear. So yeah, it's doable. It's a little awkward, but that could probably be cleared up a little bit more. But in terms of like making that, like, changing it and adding a plugins field or something to the Helm chart, I don't see that happening in the next couple weeks. And that was really all I had to say. I don't know if anybody had any other thoughts.
Yeah, I guess the one other thing I'll mention is that if you are using the Helm chart, you can always still use the Velero plugin add command from the CLI. So you do have the option to install with Helm without any plugins, and then after the fact do a Velero plugin add. It's not, not the ideal UX, but it is another way that you can approach it for now.
That's a good point.
All right. So we have Dylan on the call here. Hey, Dylan, do you want to give us a little more information about the KubeCon session that you're going to be doing with Annette Clevitt next week?
Yeah, sure. The talk isn't going to do a super deep dive into Velero. We're going to talk about a couple things. So basically, Annette is part of the OpenShift container storage team here at Red Hat. So she's going to do a little bit of talking about Rook, which the Rook operator, which allows you to dynamically provision Ceph volumes on a Kubernetes cluster. And so we're going to basically have a sample app that will be using some Ceph volumes, and Nuba will be used as the backing store, so with an S3 endpoint from Nuba. And then my part of the talk is just going to be discussing how Velero can be used to back up and restore the Ceph volume using Restic. And then we think we might talk a little bit about the CSI snapshot plugin and how we got that working with Ceph. We're not totally exactly sure yet, still kind of working on the presentation. Yeah, so primarily I'm going to be talking about using Restic, our experience developing plugins on top of Velero. We're really not going to talk much about OpenShift, but I am going to talk about how easy it was to develop plugins on top. And yeah, do a little demo of backup and restore of a WordPress app with Ceph volumes using Nuba as the backing store. So looking forward to meeting you guys there. We'll definitely be at the lunch on Wednesday. And I'm sure I'll be attending your guys' talks too, if you could do a little more of a deep dive of Velero.
That's great. Thank you, Dylan.
Cool. And I'll actually throw one more thing out there. I actually found out today that the CSI volume snapshot APIs, the CRDs, have gone to V1 beta. I think the biggest change that's relevant to us is there's an extra field, but I need to read through that and confirm. But I'll also be updating my talk to mention the difference between the alpha and the beta. And I'll have to look through that to see if that affects the Velero plugin. But
well, yeah, I actually hit a little bit of issue with the CSI snapshot stuff, but I also didn't have much exposure to it in the past. So Annette, my co-presenter, has worked a lot with CSI in the past, so she was really interested in Velero support for it. So she's kind of been digging down that in the last week or so.
Yeah, and we're definitely willing to talk about that. I know we want to talk about it more, and we've also kind of kicked around some ideas. So right now, our prototype plugin is an item action plugin, and that kind of came from feedback from Anthony's team at Dell EMC, because they tried implementing it as a volume snapshot plugin, and based on the data you need for the volume snapshot API with CSI, we didn't quite pass down the right stuff. So it was easier to do a backup item action plugin. But Steve and I were talking at one point, and we're wondering if we could finagle it to be a volume snapshot plugin. I need to reconfirm with Anthony on like what exactly we were missing, because it would be really nice to conform everything into that volume snapshot API from our perspective, but that's not set in stone. But I would like to move the CSI volume snapshot stuff forward. I know that's going to be a big topic of discussion at the SIG Storage face-to-face on Monday next week. They want to move that forward. I know they're very interested in hearing user feedback. So they want to hear from us as Velero users, and I'm sure from OpenShift users, people who are building on top of it. So yeah, it's definitely something we can talk about next week. Like, I'd love to hear your thoughts on using your and Annette's thoughts on using our prototype, or even using CSI volume snapshot directly, if that's something you have experience with.
Yeah, I actually like have just started playing with it, so I'll try to do a little more this week, so I have some feedback for you. But yeah, still kind of learning about it myself.
Yeah, and then Nolan, this is actually Anthony. So I played around with that prototype, I think a couple of months ago. It's been a while. I need to refresh my memory, but if I remember well, I think that the reason why we preferred your approach where you're using the backup and restore item actions was so we tried to do a volume snapshotter as the CSI for the CSI, and I think the issue was that the interface itself, the volume snapshotter interface, didn't pass down some of the metadata for the CSI volume that we needed to issue snapshot calls. I could go back and look at it. It's been a while, but I can definitely, dig it up and then probably give you some more feedback on it.
Yeah, as I remember it, it required doing a bunch of calls to the Kubernetes API to kind of gather all the information you needed to then create the volume snapshot API, the CRD. Whereas it was a lot quicker to just say, hey, I have my persistent volume. We've got the handful of things we need from it. Here you go.
Yeah.
But just for some context, the idea for it came from, I think, Steve, you were messing around with putting Restic into a volume snapshotter plugin. And from our perspective as Velero maintainers, it was kind of like, wouldn't it be great if everything just went down that one path? So we didn't have a path for volume snapshotter plugins and a path for Restic and a path for CSI. So that's kind of the reason why we're thinking about exploring that. I'm not saying that we're going to change it to that necessarily. We may take some time to try it and see exactly what exactly happens if we do that. But I know your team tried it, Anthony. I know the biggest hurdle was, like you said, there wasn't as all the metadata you needed wasn't there like it was with the backup item action version.
Right. And also, I guess some of the fields, like I think availability zones, we found that was, at least from the CSI, it wasn't that relevant in some cases. So I had a question. So I think a few months ago, I might have heard that within the core Kubernetes, they're actually moving the entry plugins to CSI. Is that something that you've heard? Or?
So I know they're working on a migration plan. This is actually something Andan and I, we need to go look up because we're not super close to this, but I also know there's people here at VMware that are working on it. So there's work to provide migration paths for all the in-tree plugins to out-of-tree plugins, out-of-tree storage plugins. And my understanding is most of those will be the CSI ones, but I don't know that for sure. I know I'm 90% confident that the VMware one will be a CSI plugin. I need to find that document because I know they have a deadline on it, but I don't know what that is. I want to say it's a year out at least, but I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah, I'm just wondering what impact that will have for, right now I know Velero uses the volume snapshotters, and that's reliant on what the entry plugins they have right now.
Yeah, well, yeah, I need to revisit that document because I know one concern I've had is part of the experience is that getting CSI set up it's not a great experience at the moment, right? With entry plugins, if you're on a platform that has entry plugins for storage, it's a lot easier. You deploy Kubernetes, and as long as you have the storage settings set up, like the field set right, it just works. With CSI, you have to do a lot more. You have to deploy more manifests. You have to do more settings. I know that's a known issue, and I know people are working on that. but I don't know the state of that. I do know there is a lot of work on that migration happening. I just don't know where it's at the moment.
Yeah. Thanks, Nolan. Yep.
Awesome. Any other discussion topics here that you want to bring up? All right, Steve, I added the contributors from the 1.2 release. Do you want to talk a little about those?
Sure. Yeah, I definitely don't remember off the top of my head all the contributions that each of these folks have made, but you know, definitely appreciate each of the contributions. I think we've gone through the kind of the detailed contributions from each of these folks in past meetings. I do know one of the ones we didn't get to cover recently was from Anthony, Beta 1 here listed on the top. He caught a bug that we had around leaking plugin sub-processes. So we were essentially spinning up sub-processes and then never actually terminating them, so they would just accumulate within the Velero container. So he caught this during the v1.2 beta testing and was able to submit a patch for it. So that definitely was a good issue to catch. I think it's been around for a couple of versions. I'm not exactly sure when it was introduced, but it was really great to get that fixed for 1.2. So thanks a lot for that, Anthony.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And also, yeah, thank you for your feedback. You know, I got some help from you as well to know which area of the code to fix. So thanks for that, for the help as well.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you all so much for helping us build out 1.2. Super happy with it. With all the contributions from the community and the community members. So thank you so much. Any last comments, concerns, questions?
Yeah, so I was gonna look back to with Nolan on the initial issue around CSI. Are we planning to also invest some time and maybe test out what Windows will look like with Velero backups? So I think that probably as the community is maturing a little bit more and more on Windows, it might be worthwhile for us to try out, you know, the CSI is in alpha for Windows, and they'll graduate to beta soon enough. Wondering if we should just put that on our not immediate roadmap, but maybe in the next 3 months to just give it a shot and see what that looks like.
I don't know if we've talked about that. I've had idle thoughts, but I have no idea if that would work or not. My hunch is it would fail, but I don't know that anyone's tried it.
We should at least give it a shot and see what it
Yeah.
looks like. And if it fails, then it might be something simple to fix. Because
Yeah.
at the high level, all the kubectl commands and the APIs and everything should be the same.
Yeah,
So
same interface.
yeah, so restic should work. CSI may or may not work. That's my biggest concern. It's worthwhile for us to add it in our radar, in our queue, maybe to do sometime early next year, if not earlier, because then we can influence the community to kind of fix whatever they need to fix, whether that's on our end or theirs.
It could be a good opportunity also to, you know, maybe present Velero to the Kubernetes Windows community and see if we can find some folks who are interested in it and, you know, can help us out with testing. Because to be honest, I don't think we've heard much from users who are interested in using it on Windows, but that may just be that we're not in the right forums.
If we can give it a shot on our end, the guys that are working on CSI for Windows is the folks from Docker. And right now they're pretty busy trying to get the CSI stuff, you know, keep them moving and creating more providers. I think they're doing, well, I know they're doing Azure and GCP right now providers. But if we can put in our docket and try it out, then I'll bring us all together and see if we can get them to help us fix whatever is necessary.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds reasonable to me. I mean, yeah, if it fails, we can start filing issues at the very least.
Yep, that's about. Like, I mean, and the responsibility on us, right? We want to call out and say support for Velero on Windows, and will probably be the first backup tool that will have that support. Cool. I'll add it to our meeting notes as well. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. All right. I think that concludes today's meeting. We definitely hope we see a lot of you, well, or rather many of you at the conference next week. Super excited for the talks, for the community lunch, and for just hanging out with awesome Kubernetes folks. So have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.